What really happened in the Tigray War? How did a conflict in a single Ethiopian region become one of the most complex and tragic humanitarian crises of the 21st century? Welcome to today's video. We'll break down the origins, causes and events of the Tigray War, a conflict that has torn apart communities, displaced millions and led to countless human rights violations. In the next few minutes, we'll take a balanced look at this complex issue and try to understand what led Ethiopia into this dark chapter. Ethiopia is a country with rich cultural diversity, composed of over 80 ethnic groups. Among these groups, the Tigrayans make up about 6% of the population and are concentrated in the northern part of Ethiopia. For nearly 30 years, a political coalition known as the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, or EPRDF, led the country. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, was one of the strongest factions within this coalition. The TPLF has significant influence within this existing coalition, shaping Ethiopian politics and policies. However, whilst Ethiopia achieved significant economic growth during this time, the government was often criticised for authoritarian practices, human rights abuses, and ethnic favouritism. In 2018, political change swept Ethiopia. Abiy Ahmed from the Oromo ethnic group became Prime Minister, promising reforms to address ethnic grievances, open up political freedoms, end the country's autocratic tendencies. Abiy's reforms initially brought hope, even earning him the Nobel Peace Prize for his role in ending Ethiopia's conflict with neighbouring Eritrea. But inside Ethiopia, tensions simmered. Abiy dissolved the EPRDF coalition and created the Prosperity Party, a move that alienated the TPLF, who refused to join the new party. By late 2020, the relationship between Abiy's government and the TPLF had become strained, with disagreements over military appointments, budget allocations and regional autonomy. The TPLF openly defied the federal government by holding regional elections in Tigray in September of 2020, despite the national election being postponed due to COVID-19. This defiance was seen as a direct challenge to Abiy's authority. In November 2020, the situation reached a boiling point. TPLF forces attacked the ENDF Northern Command based in Tigray. In response, Abiy launched a military offensive against TPLF, officially marking the beginning of the Tigray War. The conflict quickly escalated, involving not only Ethiopian federal forces, but also Eritrean troops, who joined the offensive to support Abiy's government. The TPLF meanwhile mobilized its own fighters and garnered support from local militias within Tigray. As the conflict unfolded, reports of human rights abuses began to emerge from both sides. Civilians in Tigray faced mass displacement, famine-like conditions, and restricted access to humanitarian aid. There were reports of mass killings, sexual violence, and destruction of infrastructure across the region. Both the Ethiopian government and the TPLF have been accused of serious human rights violations, with each side denying responsibility. Humanitarian agencies struggled to access the region, with both parties to the conflict accused of blocking aid. The United Nations and other international organisations expressed concern, warning of a looming humanitarian catastrophe. The international community, including the United States, the European Union and African Union, called for an end to hostilities and demanded access for humanitarian aid. Sanctions and diplomatic pressures were applied, but mediation efforts initially failed to bring both sides to the negotiating table. In late 2022, under pressure from international actors, representatives from the Ethiopian government and the TPLF agreed to a ceasefire and engaged in peace talks. Although some progress was made, the path to reconciliation remains challenging, with lingering distrust and unresolved grievances on both sides. China's Belt and Road Initiative which aims to expand infrastructure and trade networks across Africa, has had a complicated relationship with the Tigray War. Ethiopia, as a significant partner in the Belt and Road Initiative, holds strategic value to China for its location and economic potential. Throughout the conflict, China maintained a largely non-interventionist stance, advocating for Ethiopia's sovereignty and internal resolution of disputes. However, the war's humanitarian crisis and regional instability have raised questions about the long-term stability of China's investments and infrastructure projects in Ethiopia, challenging the Belt and Road Initiative's goals of fostering stable, economically thriving partnerships. Today, the impact of the Tigray War is still deeply felt across Ethiopia. The conflict left millions displaced, countless families torn apart, deep scars across communities. Although fighting has subsided, Ethiopia faces a long road to recovery, marked by economic challenges, political instability, and the ongoing need for reconciliation. The Tigray War is a stark reminder of how political disputes could spiral into devastating violence. The question now is, can Ethiopia's leaders address the grievances that led to this conflict and prevent future violence? Or will Ethiopia face further division and suffering? Thank you for watching this breakdown of the Tigray War. Let us know in the comments what you think the path forward for Ethiopia should be. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell for more in-depth videos on complex global issues.